Hello and welcome back to the Palmer Performance Workshop. This is part 2 of the Honda Fireblade track bike build. We've had a parts delivery, so first thing we're going to do is take a little look through what we've got and probably fit a few of the parts before we head off to the dyno later this week to run the bike in. Stay tuned. So first things first, biggest item, Akrapovic full race system. That's all packaged up at the moment. I'm not going to unpack it until we're ready to fit it. So we'll have a proper look at that later on. We'll move on to braking. Now we've got a few different items here to what we might normally use in the workshop. This is a Gallopspeed adjustable ratio master cylinder. You see it's actually, you can adjust the lever ratio here with a little screw in the end there. That was something that the customer already had as a spare. Brand new, never been used as far as I'm aware, so we're going to make use of that rather than it sitting around in his spares box. And then we've also got these Moto Master front discs. Now, a lot of the guys at or in National Superstock at British level were running these discs. They're a 6mm thick disc. They're kind of a bit like a T-drive disc, but they also have a bobbin in them as well. But obviously, a lot of these Superstock lads who are running them got on with them really well. So we've got a set of those to go on. And obviously there'll be some uprated brake pads to go in with it. I believe we've got Brembo Z04s coming. We have also got a remote adjuster, which we can use with the Gallopspeed lever. So that's all good to go as well. Then we move on to drivetrain. Got Renthal sprockets, front and rear, and then a Tsubaki RQR chain, Japanese brand chain. Evotech, basically the nicest oil cooler and radiator protection that you can get, and it's also made here in the UK, somewhere in Lincolnshire if I remember right. Same with the GB racing stuff, that's obviously made in the UK as well. Guys there are fantastic, they make some brilliant products. So we've got those on. They're actually something we can easily fit before we go to the dyno, so I'll probably chuck them on in a minute. And then we move on to the Spider products. I haven't used Spider stuff that often, but it's something that we're going to use on this bike. But they do lots of nice little bits. So we've got these, which are lock stop reducers, which just bolt on. So they look pretty nice and easy to use. We have got a race fuel cap. They're all, a lot of these things are very similar to one another. So these Spider ones look almost identical to the TWM ones and various other ones you might see. They all sort of copy each other's designs, I think. We've also got, if I can get them out the box, captive spacers, captive wheel spacers. And the Spider ones are quite nicely made. They've got marked on them with laser etching where they should go, and obviously these replace your standard wheel spacers, and they've got a little lip on them to stop them falling out, so, and the little chamfer on the side, and that kind of makes it easier for your wheel changes. You're not knocking spacers out and stuff like that, so we've got those to do. And also, while we're on the subject of wheel changing, Spider do this bracket here. I'll go around the bike and show you, but basically the idea of that is that it replaces this chain axle block here, goes in like that, and then bolts up to the caliper here with a slightly longer bolt, and then that holds the caliper sort of perfectly in place when you're changing the rear wheel, so you don't knock it out of the way or whatever. Again, Spider handlebars, they're quite a low offset bar to kind of mimic the standard arrangement, so they'll be all good. We've got a Spider clutch lever to replace the standard one. So the standard one's a pretty standard clutch lever, bit dull, bit boring. This is obviously reach adjustable, so, and it flips up on the end. It also matches a little bit better with the Gallopspeed one that we've got on the brake side, so all good. And then these rear sets, I don't think I've ever actually fitted any Spider rear sets before, so it'd be nice to see how it goes with these. Certainly the quality of the machining and the anodizing looks good. And all the relevant bits in there. And obviously Renthal grips. Always put Renthal grips on. And I think that's about it for the time being. So there's plenty there for us to be getting on with. And I think before we go to the dyno, like I said, we can put the GB racing covers on. Maybe put the fuel cap in. and that will probably do until after we've run it in. But yeah, let's get cracking. Let's get the GB Racing engine protection on. Now I tend to pull the covers out of the packets first and just offer them up so I can see which bolts I need to remove. Spin them out. Get the new bolts that come with the GB cover out of the packaging. Get them wound back in, and then get a torque wrench out and make sure they're torqued up to factory specs. Normally in the instructions they'll also give you that spec. Alternator side done, we'll move around to the other side of the bike and we'll get the clutch cover and the smaller right hand front cover done at the same time. Just spinning the bolts out again, the new longer ones in, making sure they're going in the right places. Again, with the instructions, they're really good. They tell you if there's any longer bolts and where they go. Spin them in, torque them up, move on to the next cover. Now there really is no better crash protection than the GB Racing stuff. Obviously I've spent a lot of time around racing motorcycles and track bikes, and there is no better crash protection. Nice and smart, job done. Moving on to the fuel tank. Let's get the standard cap off. Now to get that off you have to undo it with the key, and then the key ends up stuck in there, but if you press the sort of bottom part where the seal is, it'll normally let it release and flip back round. So here we're just prepping the new cap. There's various spacers and small O-rings that have to go on 3 of the bolts to make sure nothing leaks, and then obviously a big rubber gasket where it seals around the edge of the cap as well, or around the edge of the tank, and then a couple of just blank bolts for ones that don't actually do anything. You can see there's a little breather pipe on there, and it's quite important with the breather pipe that it goes into one of the pipes in the tank and doesn't get kinked. Job done. While we're at it, we'll get the new clutch lever put on from Spider. You see, just slackening off the cable and then pulling the old one out. Some levers, aftermarket levers, you have to swap the bush over from the standard lever into the new lever, but not with this Spider one. And they were just using a bit of Putolene racing grease on the pivot and everything to make sure it has a nice smooth action. Screwing the pivot bolt back in and then put the nut on underneath and nip it up, and just checking the adjustment's good. Perfect. Ready for dyno. So here we are with the blade over at Track Electronics. We're going to run it in today before we then crack on with the rest of the build. Now, first time I come across this on any bike, I think, but basically in the HRC race manual for these bikes, they actually specify a running in procedure for the engines when they're new. I can't recall ever seeing that before from any other manufacturer. I've used the same running in procedure for ever since I've been in the trade pretty much, which generally is a case of building up the revs gradually, low load, and just increasing them over time. We probably do about 50 miles in total, but just thought I'd show you what HRC say. So this is basically what they want you to do. So you hold the bike at 4,000 RPM, 10% throttle position, 38.5 Newton meters approx engine torque for 15 minutes. So they literally want you to hold it at those RPMs for that amount of specific time at those throttle positions. Now we can achieve that on the dyno quite easily because we can vary the load, and we can actually set the dyno to hold the engine RPM at a specific point as well. And as you can see here, the dash has a very handy throttle position display. Temperatures and stuff like that, we'll have all the fans going, and you know, if we need to take a break to let everything cool down, then we will. So anyway, that's enough talking about it. Let's get set up and get this thing run in. 4,000 RPM segment done, and now we're just tweaking the hold target on the dyno computer for the next batch at 6,000 RPM. And there we go, a boring morning of running it in. Once I finished the running in, I thought it'd be nice just to give it a base run as standard. And as we can see, it just clicked about 196 horsepower, which for a bog standard bike with standard exhaust and everything on is not bad. You can see through the mid-range, the fueling's a little bit on the leaner side. It's kind of near stoichiometric there, which is what you'd expect with the closed loop fueling with the lambdas. And then when you sort of get up to the upper end of the rev range, it actually dives off quite rich. It's down to like 11.5 there. But obviously that's all kind of irrelevant because we're going to change the exhaust system. That's going to have a massive effect on what the fueling does. So now the bike's running, we can take it back to the workshop and crack on to stripping it down and getting some of the new parts fitted. That's us back from the dyno and ready to crack back on with stripping this old girl down. New girl. We have had another delivery from Öhlins. We actually ended up deciding to go for a complete brand new TTX GP shock. Like I said in the earlier video, in the first video, you can convert the original shocks to basically the same spec, but they do have a couple of little internal differences. So for the sake of the extra cost and what this bike is doing, we thought we'd get this one done, and then it gives us the option to get the standard shock done, maybe as a wet shock or whatever. Also got Öhlins steering damper kit. Again, don't necessarily need to use that. Pete, you can adjust the electronic one in the dash. It has like a soft, medium and hard setting, so you could leave the electronic one on, but whilst we're going down the Öhlins route, we might as well throw them on. And then we've got the Öhlins FKR fork cartridge kit. It's kind of their top of the line cartridge kit for sort of normal forks. Comes with 3 sets of springs. It's also got some nice little preload spacers for the springs, which have magnets in them. So when you take the springs out to adjust fork oil level and stuff, the spacer comes with them. These will also be modified for 130mm travel as well, just to give a little bit more travel. But basically where we're at now is we're going to do a big strip down. We'll drop the coolant, we'll take the radiator off, we'll take the exhaust off, we'll have the fuel tank and airbox and everything off. We can then drain down the brake lines using my little vacuum bleeder kit, and then we can take all the ABS brake lines off, all the pipes off, we can get the front end out, get the forks off to Darren at MCT with that fork kit, and get that all fitted up. And sort of whilst we're waiting for Darren to do that, we can crack on with fitting things like the rear sets and all the other bits and pieces. So yeah, I think we'll call that a day for this video. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe as per normal. And in the next video, we'll crack on with getting this bike stripped and built.